Samuel who says, what are some of the available solutions one can deploy to monitor the whole network for threat and report on the real-time basis in plain language? In current circumstances, we are more reactive than being proactive in managing cyber threats. What I'll tell Samuel is, first of all, because everybody is selling solution outside there, what you need to understand is, what do you need? Do a risk assessment, because everybody can sell you anything. And what we have seen is the vendors are just coming there and bombarding you with all sort of solutions. Do you first understand what a solution will do to you? So to me, I think, first of all, yes, there are tools outside there which can mitigate all these threats and make sure that you are able to respond to these threats immediately. But what we are seeing here is, you cannot deploy something like a SOC and you have not done the baseline. And you just first do the baseline so that when you bring these solutions, you can have things that are talking about the solution. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sometimes you can end up buying a lot of tools, and after a period of time, you are unable to show the value, ROI, of all the tools that you've bought. So before investing in any tool, again, as you said, do that risk assessment to know where you are. There was one slide that you had shown where you mentioned we don't know ourselves. We don't know our threats, we don't know our attackers. So if we don't know that and we're already buying tools, we might not be able to utilize them 100%.
There's a question from
Sorry? How can Seriano Limited assist Sacco to scan and vet the existing third-party vendor to have proper SLAs adhered to? I think, okay, since I'm from Seriano, I'll answer that one. Definitely, just as Kelvin has said, with any vendor, you have an SLA in place. So, and with any risk assessment or process assessment, you need to assess business, people, and technology. So when you're looking at processes, this is where your vendors come in very much. How are you onboarding your vendors? How are you retaining your vendors? And how are you retiring your vendors? And when it comes to maintaining your vendors, maintaining means what are some of the legal requirements that you've tied yourself with that particular vendor? What are the metrics? Are they meeting the metrics in terms of just the legal aspects of it? So it's critical for you, especially when you're doing onboarding any vendor or when you're conducting any risk assessment, incorporate that vendor assessment or third-party assessment into that process. It's usually obvious for some of the vendors who do this work, but if it's not, just emphasize that you have to include the risk assessment, vendor risk assessment, as part of your annual audit or as part of your annual vulnerability assessment. Because when you talk about people, vendors fall under the people. When you talk about processes, vendors fall under processes. And even technology, some of the technologies, it's the vendors who are managing that. So I think the way Seriano or any other organization will help you is by conducting that audit and looking at what are the agreements. Are we meeting the agreements that were put in place in that SLA? And are you locking yourself as a Sacco to that particular vendor? Or are you, yes. So those are some of the things that we'll look at when it comes to vendor management.
Just to add something on that, Prince.
Yeah.
What I will also advise the Saccos is, when you're doing the SLA, understand that at the end of the day, the buck will stop with you. So if you really don't understand all the clauses, which is not a big problem, can you take it into another level? So because not everyone understands all the legal pertaining the risk of a certain application or a certain solution that you procure. If you don't understand all the aspects, just like you organizations that tend to understand more the gaps that are happening on the SLA, because we have these SLAs, we even don't understand what the solution is doing properly. So I think if you don't understand the solution, then the SLA will have to be so many things untouched.
Yeah. And you see this a lot of times when there's a breach or there's an attack that has occurred and you're trying to maybe tie the vendor to maybe do certain things, but then that's when you realize, wow, that was not even captured in the SLA. Yeah, so I can see another question from Michael. We have had overtax perpetrated by former employees of a vendor or a vendor. How can we cushion ourselves against this? So former employees, former like vendors, people who you previously invited into your organizations and now they have left. How do we guard against this? I don't know if I should take this first, then you go. Yama, you have an answer, Kelvin?
Okay, I'm trying to look for that question again.
Oh, under Q&A. So it's the last question from Michael Musioka. Yeah. We have had attacks perpetrated by former employees or vendors. How can we cushion ourselves against this?
Okay, I will say for the employees, what you need to look is, what is your exit plan? When an employee is leaving the organization, what is that exit plan, that an exit policy that you have in place? So if it is a critical person in the ICT department, once they leave, make sure that they have surrendered all and each and every asset they get. Then I think it will be very prudent for you to change some of the passwords of the devices which are facing the internet, if you didn't know how the employee is living. But an interview is very important. So when it comes to the vendor, I think it will still come back to the SLA, because if you're being attacked by an employee of a vendor, then I think you are dealing with a vendor reports and not the employee, because even if they have left, how why are they attacking you? So I think again it depends. How did you even know that it's an employee from a vendor who attacked you? Yeah. So I think that one is a bit, it is not very clear. But when you say an employee of a vendor, of a former vendor, so I think now in that case you'll have to just deal with that person like a fraudster. Yeah. Because there is a road, they have already left the vendor. So this person is just dealing as a fraudster in that case. So I think you just have to deal with him like that.
Yes. So, if I might add also, when you look at most of these situations usually happen if you have that one particular guy or one, let's say it's in IT, for example, that one particular IT manager who is serving as, who has the passwords for both your databases, your applications, your servers, everything that is critical. This is the one person who has all those details. So that is even where the problem begins. So that when this one person leaves the organization, the first thing is you're crippled. You cannot proceed, and you've been so dependent on one person. All your systems are managed by that one person. So what I can say, even before this happens, is just have that segregation of duties, because then it will help. So let's say even if it's passwords, have it the way we have two-factor, or the way we have you give one as an approver and the other one as what is the name? One is an approver and the other one is an initiator. So separating these roles such that even if you lose one, in terms of security, you have that assurance that at least no fraud can occur because that person does not have all the passwords. So I think before they leave, or even at the moment, don't depend on just one person to handle everything in your organization, and split all these critical things like passwords, split them. When it comes to change management, actually have it documented as a process such that should anyone leave, you are able to bring in someone else to do the same thing without wasting too much time or depending so much on the other person.
So, what I'll say also in terms of discipline, business, continuity planning is you have also to make sure that you build your capacity, because you'll find that sometimes the ICT will just be left with one person or just two individuals. So try to build up your capacity so that you can also do a proper transition, and can you be able to also do knowledge share? Because some people, I don't know if it's just, I don't know what to say, but can you just do knowledge sharing within your department? Can you make sure that these passwords are documented? there is a change, just like you said, there's a change process.